What's up, everybody? Now, there's a saying that in polite company you should never talk about two subjects, religion and politics. And though I think that to a degree this is true, the Brexit referendum has brought the political discussion more into the national psyche. Now, that said though, I'm sure that not many people read as much news as I do, and are possibly not aware of what is happening to the same degree. I'm sure that it is the same for many of you. This higher level of knowledge about what's happening in the world is a blessing, but in many ways it's also a curse. It's difficult to find people in day-to-day life that can discuss subjects with any kind of knowledge of any subject, short of that of what appears in the headlines. Now, in addition to this, it's also difficult to boil down all the key facts into a cogent and articulate argument. I could, and sometimes have, done video after video dealing with the minutiae of a subject, but to most, this is rather too specific. Now, it's up to all of us as individuals as to how aware of any particular news story we become. And this is largely due to what subjects interest us. For example, I could bore you for many hours at a time about things like finance, the markets, but again, this is very niche. And in future, I probably will do some financial articles. But for now, Brexit is the main story of the day, and that's really what I know. I go onto YouTube and I'm reading in all the news, and that's what I think people want to hear about. And it's something that I'm following closely, so I'm going to try and pass some of that information on to you. Now, this in turn can lead to a situation where that information becomes too much. And in my case, it can lead to what I've called Brexit fatigue. I had a case of this over the weekend again when I went back to my old stomping grounds up north to see my family. And to a degree, it helps when you don't have all the time you want to read through the news. And so I fell back into watching headline news territory. And to be fair, I had a chance to listen to Jeff Taylor while I was in the car, so I was much more informed than many on the situation. But the minutiae of those articles was not there. Now, when I get my news from the biased BBC reporting in this way, it is so difficult to think of anything other than, when is this going to be over? I mean, I get almost physical symptoms of Brexit fatigue, and that lower level headline news almost triggers me like a snowflake. And so we went into the weekend with Boris Johnson coming back with a deal from Brussels. We saw on Super Saturday, which was anything but, let's face it, a parliament which was sitting for the first time on a weekend since the Falklands War, in order to achieve, well, what did they achieve? They achieved nothing. We see the Parliament continue to play its undemocratic games in order to stop any form of Brexit. Then we are told the vote would go to Super Monday instead. Again, a total letdown, as the vote wasn't even allowed by the Speaker under his interpretations of the rules of Parliament. And now we're told the vote will happen today on the deal. Now, I've been watching the Parliament live all this afternoon, and I can feel myself being drawn back into the whole debacle. And still, I find myself fighting against it. But I also realise that I need to know. The more I know, the better I will feel. And so I'm going to throw myself back into it. And yet, coming from a position of my reoccurring Brexit fatigue, I also feel in two minds. I'd like to think that this will be over by the 31st of October, but this does not appear to be the case. So this looks like it's going to go on and on and on, and I think I'm reserved to this fate. And yet part of me wants to believe that Boris Johnson can get it done. Not having looked at the current deal on the table, I'll be completely honest with that. I'm not really in a position to speak on it. I've heard what the commentators have said, but it appears to be getting a bit of a mixed response. I will be honest and say that the largest part of me would accept it, just to end it all, just to make this all go away, even though a WTO Brexit would be my preferred option. I guess I might be fooling myself into thinking that perhaps Boris Johnson is serious in what he says, and that perhaps he does have something up his sleeve, and that a WTO Brexit is still possible in law. I mean, he's abided by the Surrender Act, as he said that he would do, and his rhetoric on leaving on the 31st of the month doesn't appear to have changed. And so, as the time goes by today, we move towards a vote on whether to agree on the Brexit deal in principle, or to have a second reading, or, honestly, something like along those lines. Well, whether Parliament votes it through or not, and so far it appears it won't. I mean, in the wall-to-wall news, it appears all of this is minutiae again. It's just small things. We're all being forced to become subject matter experts on how the Parliament and our democracy works, or rather, how it can be sidestepped. I mean, let's face it, 2 months ago, would you have known what prorogation was? I had to look that one up in a dictionary, and we went through a period there where we heard nothing else but prorogation. Look, what I'm trying to say is, the news, yes, it's frustrating, and it's certainly angering up my blood and that of many others, but this stuff is important. This is about democracy. I personally have never been so engaged, and I will continue to be engaged in this process, and I will do my best to get that information to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe if you appreciate what we do.